All right, so we're live. Coach, you with me? Can you hear me?
I'm here with you.
Perfect. All right, you guys. You guys. Welcome. This is Coach David with Metro Jiu Jitsu. What's going on here? Okay, so I'm playing. That's me playing in the background, just doing a reality check, guys. If you're getting this here, do me a favor, just put a comment that the audio and video is good. We're trying out this new software, Ecamm software. I believe this will be our first time going live on Instagram, at least with this software, and we've had a busy week, right, Coach?
Very busy, very busy. Lots of activity going on in the jiu-jitsu world.
So tell us, catch us up a little bit on kind of what happened this week, some of the events.
So yeah, I mean, all across the jiu-jitsu world, like there's Worlds, UFC Fight Pass had an event the day before Worlds. So there was a lot of high level grappling and competitions going on this weekend. I just got back from Las Vegas for IBJJF's World Championships, which I believe it was one of the largest draw of competitors ever. I think I heard something like 4,000 competitors over 3 days, so it was crazy.
How was the so how'd Worlds go? Because I've heard I saw how'd Worlds go. I was watching through people's live streams and videos, and how was the overall experience for the competitors, the refs, the coaching,
Yeah.
the timing,
So
the staging?
yeah, that's a loaded question because it depends who you ask. I mean, it's obviously always better when you leave competition with a victory, but it was you know there's not so many big names in jiu-jitsu anymore. There's a lot of big names. So jiu-jitsu has grown so much. There isn't, let's watch this guy or that guy. Like, man, the talent is is growing. Like it's growing so much. It's like, everybody in the brackets, once you get to the first or second round, it's stacked. So you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of like elite high level grapplers.
Yeah, and I know I was talking with Coach Sawula, and he said that a couple of the brackets had one of them had like 100 people in it, and I was like,
Yeah.
man, that's crazy. He's like, well, yeah, but it sounds like a lot, but half of them are knocked out after the first round, so then you're left with 50, then 20, then 10, and so on. So it's like
Right.
seven or eight matches, and um, 7 or 8 matches to get gold. What so we had a couple people compete. How'd they tell us about that experience? Tell us how everything went. It's obviously you've done worlds for the past few years now. Gi and no gi.
Yeah. So, the brackets are, they're seeded just like all sports. Like you have favorites, you have first seed, second seed, and things like that. So they're set up according to your rankings in jiu-jitsu. And the seeding, like I can't tell you how many times, how many like low seeds were knocking out, you know, first and second seed. So like there's so much competition, and uh, the seating didn't reflect necessarily who podiumed this year. It's I'm sure it's like that often, but so there was that. I'm telling you, the skill level is literally the best of the best.
What what
So
what what specifically are you seeing different? Like what are we seeing different for, say from 10 years ago? What
uh,
guards, what positions, what attacks? What's different from the 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 maybe someone who's not as deep in the trenches of it. What's so different?
yeah, I mean that's a good question because the let's talk about the purple belt brackets, for example. We had a couple purples at Worlds this year. So if you're training full time for a year, 3 years, like you're exposed to all of the jujitsu that you could possibly expose to as far as technique wise. If you're on the mat training, studying, within a matter of like 3 years, you've been exposed to everything. And at that time, it's just a matter of testing the testing your jujitsu, testing the moves, the sweeps, the submissions. So at the purple belt level, something that I saw is these guys are, they're just a time away from like brown and black. And they, the precision with submissions, the precision with like sweeps. You can't do any heel hooks and like inside at the purple belt division, but it's literally one move away from black belt matches. So one thing that I saw is a skill level is man, it's I see a lot of black belt skill level at the purple belt bracket. So that's one thing that I saw, and um, yeah, it was very very cool to see. A lot of up and coming names. You're muted.
Sorry,
You're
I'm muting
muted.
myself. So how would you because the IBJJF, I mean, they've kind of had a monopoly for years, and thanks, Mama. And I know they've got some competition coming up with the ADCC. So who's your favorite in those? Like with our ADCC, I know we've been doing a lot of the federations for years because they've been kind of like the largest player. In a single year, I think ADCC has like they've made a real commitment. I know Mo has made a real commitment to growing that, especially for the nogi sport. So what's your thoughts on those? Be it, ADCC rule set, the popularity of it, the intensity of it. Like what's your what's your kind of take on that?
You know, Jiu-jitsu is becoming mainstream, right?
Yeah, I mean
So
it's gaining popularity, but I was talking to a couple of our blue belts. It's gaining popularity, but the number one most popular human in jiu-jitsu, Gordon Ryan, nobody knows. Like there's like they know like a Caitlyn. I don't know. I barely know who Caitlyn Jenner is, only because she came to Allen Park, and like everyone, that's a household name. Caitlyn Jenner, Kardashians, LeBron, freaking Iserman. Like these are household names. Nobody knows Gordon, so it's growing, but like even the number one by and large, the Michael Jordan of jiu-jitsu, no one knows. Like more people know about the supermodel who's like trains jiu-jitsu now than Gordon Ryan. So I agree it's growing. It's I don't know if I'd call it mainstream though, just yet.
yeah, well, the if you don't train jujitsu and you have no understanding of it, like you're gonna get wowed by like a flying armbar, rolling berimbolo, reverse de la Hiva where you go underneath and take the back. Like there's some really acrobatic, cool moves that if you see it, you're like, whoa, like highlight reels, right? So uh, because there's so much more awareness to the sport, more people are watching it. So, uh, there is a lot more exposure to the sport, like so much more.
So who's your take? Like what's your stance on the ADCC versus the federation? Like if ADCC continues to grow, do you are I mean because now they have opens now. So what are your thoughts on the do you think they have stand a chance to dethrone the federation?
It's a good question. There's a rule set in jiu-jitsu. There is a rule set, and you cannot compare. Like the NFL has an NFL, it has a semi-pro league, and there's different like sub leagues when you go down in level. And with jiu-jitsu, it's really about the rule set like changes dramatically from ADCC, IBJJF, who's number one, UFC Fight Pass. Like those are all very very different rule sets, and the little changes of the rule sets completely change how dominant one person could be. Like Gordon Ryan will only fight a no time limit submission only.
Mm,
And like for example, one of the rule sets that we have is you have like a 10-minute match, and if there's no submission at the end of 10 minutes, you each get a 1 minute overtime in a submission hold, like taking the back, getting the mount, and that 1 minute, somebody might have a much better chance to beat somebody like Gordon Ryan than uh, versus a 20-30 minute no time limit. Um, so I think it's important, for people watching jujitsu that are interested in jujitsu to understand it's a sport and it's growing, but the rule set is so different. And just like gi to no gi, if you have a beginner no gi person going against an advanced in a gi, the gap between how close that match could be comes much closer in no gi because it's slipperier, it's more slippery. Wrestling comes much more into play
mm,
in that. So as far as like one taking over, I think that the real athletes and the real students of jujitsu, the real academies, the real schools are going to understand that and like specifically train for that. Like the other day, Delaney, one of our students, was in a match and he got neck cranked. So in certain sub only uh, tournaments, you can do that.
yeah.
In many of them, you cannot. So if you're in somebody's guard and you pull the head up, you know, he got disqualified.
Yeah, he
And
got
that,
he got he got can opener from the guard. Like the guy went to like, kind of fold his head in, and
yeah,
I showed him. I said, well, next time they do that, pummel inside, break the clinch, and I
yeah,
just slapped the guy upside the head. Last tournament, and the ref was like laughing, and then again, it was a blue belt. At the
yeah,
time, it was just the open. I was like, "What?" He starts to can open. I literally just smacked him upside the head. He didn't do it again, and the ref was chuckling, because so now the guy doesn't get disqualified. He's kind of like, oh, I get the rules, right? So you do have to know the rules of the game that you're playing.
yeah,
You do have to know the rules of the game that you're playing, but
yeah.
it
So,
was
so
funny to see that.
IBJJF does not,
Yeah,
like, they encourage activity, but
yeah,
not, they don't penalize you nearly as fast as like the ADCC,
mm,
UFC Fight Pass. You get a warning and then you get a negative, and then
yeah.
another negative, and then another negative, and that actually takes away from points, and it completely changes the strategy of the game. So everybody has a rule set, and I think that the athletes have a voice now, and all these like who's number one, and uh, um, uh, the UFC Fight Pass, EBI. They're getting feedback and taking it from all of the competitors, and they're listening. And you're seeing like little micro changes to them, but like someone like Gordon, he gets to pick and choose what, where, and when under what rule set he competes because he is, he's the best of the best.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that, like, they dog him on that. They're like, well, you need to bring some intensity because I mean his a good portion of his game is to kind of tire the dude out 10 minutes in deep, to that match,
Yeah,
and that changes it a little bit. But I mean he won coming up through that. He's kind of earned that. He's kind of earned that right,
yeah,
to mandate those matches. So bringing it back locally, we had some belt promotions last night,
yeah.
all the way from new brown belt Coach Faddis, all the way down to several stripes on several of our white belts. That was how many adults do you think that we had? Not just people like to spectate, like actual people in gis with belts on the mat. How many do you think we had?
Oh man, 60 to 80.
Dude, I don't know. I feel like it was pushing 100.
Oh really? Yeah,
Yeah,
it
because
was.
because we have like it kind of horseshoed around the mats, like,
Yeah,
yeah, it kind of horseshoed around the mats. So but it was a lot, and then you brought their family, and that was really cool to see, really really cool to see. And I personally like, I really like on a year belt promotions because it's like kind of like, you bringing it all in. So I really like that as well. Coach, answer that question, and I'm gonna check on the on our streaming here. So what? Talk a little bit about the promotions, and then also the what it takes to get certain promotions along the way.
Yeah. So our promotions, so we do them two two to four times a year. That's when we have our promotions. We get to check in with our athletes, and that gets us to monitor the progress, go over the notes of each individual athlete, check in on the goals, and make sure that they're putting in the work and doing what it takes to meet their goal. Because everybody has a different goal in jiu-jitsu. The majority of people sign up because I want to get in shape, I want to feel better, and so that's how the majority of people get started in jiu-jitsu. They want to pick up a hobby. Really uh, they're not really getting the fulfillment out of lifting weights. So um, and you also have some people who start and say, hey, you know what, I want to compete, and I want to test out my jujitsu in the tournament. So the promotions were amazing because essentially we got to check in with all of our athletes and say, okay, let's take a look at your goals. Let's see if you've been following through with them. You've been training. You've been coming to classes. You've been supporting your team. And promotions are an awesome time because we get to like validate a lot of people, and they're rewarded with they're validated by either getting a stripe or a new belt. And there there is some. Yesterday we promoted Coach Farris to a brown belt, and he's only 125 pounds. Okay, and he's been training for
Eh,
like 15 years.
Coach, I wanna interrupt you real quick. So hold
Yeah.
that thought. So we started off on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, and along the way we lost Facebook. So we're only on YouTube now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm
Okay.
gonna end this broadcast and just reboot it because again, like all of this because it's like 4K streaming, and so if you don't have the
Okay.
bandwidth, it's gonna knock you off. So I'm just gonna end. I think you're gonna stay in the lobby, and we're just gonna reboot it. So I'm gonna end this one, and
Sounds
then we'll
good.
be
I'll,
we'll we'll
I'll
be
be
right
here.
back. Yep.